Welcome to the Rewind Project, where Allie, Matt, and Eric take another look at your favorite milestone movies through the lens of our present day. Will it be a skip, rent, or buy? Stay tuned and find out.
Hey y'all, welcome back. The Rewind Project is back for its final mini season of season 5.
This year went fast. I probably say that every single year, but I really do feel like this year went fast.
I cannot believe we've been doing this shit for 5 years. I mean, that's crazy to me.
That we're going to be doing our show preview, our pick preview soon too.
I know. It's time to look at a bunch of movies from the past, and I already know some that I'm picking next year. I won't say a word, but I've already started to look at some because I just can't help it. That's my favorite thing. It's picking all those out and then being really sad when all of my brilliant ideas don't get voted on. But that's okay. We all learn to live with a little bit of disappointment.
Democracy.
Today, we are headed back to 1948. We're not actually going to talk about a movie today. We're just going to get ourselves set up for a trip back in time, 75 years. And for those who like to do their homework along with the Rewind Project, we're going to let you know the movies that you are going to be watching along with us, or if you just want to listen to us talk about movies that we're going to spoil the fuck out of, that's fine too. But here are the movies that we're gonna watch this time, as well as some movies that we're not going to watch this time. But first, let's just kind of ground ourselves in a little bit of history. So a couple things that happened in 1948. Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated by a Hindu militant in New Delhi.
I think it's time for me to rewatch Gandhi. I saw it in school as a child. I don't believe I've seen it as an adult. In fact, I'm almost positive I haven't. I feel like maybe I would appreciate it a little bit more. I mean, aside from the fact that an Englishman is playing an Indian.
Who has some ethnic... He's not like Ben Kingsley is not like white.
No,
but he's also not Indian. He's also not Indian, so that's like a thing, that yes, we have to acknowledge.
But I think it's time. I think it's time to revisit that one.
I've never seen it.
Really?
Never.
I remember really liking it in school, and I feel just as an adult, I just would understand a lot of the, political stuff more.
Okay, a movie that I want to rewatch is Kinsey, starring Liam Neeson and Laura Linney and Peter Sarsgaard. And I mention that because also in 1948, the first Kinsey report was published, Sexual Behavior of the Human Male.
Patriarchy, always.
Sexual Behavior of the Human Female came later.
Of course it did.
But it was...
They always come later. She always comes later.
It was,
probably by herself, too. So.
Exactly. She takes matters into her own hands quite literally.
But Sexual Behavior of the Human Female was actually better. They learned a lot when they did the research for the first one, and they came out with a better report the next time. So they were practicing on the boys, and they waited till they were good.
Generally, guys are quick and out. Yeah. It's not a long lasting.
Boys don't care. It's like exactly. you don't need to practice a whole lot to make the boys happy. But the Kinsey reports, both of them, rocked the fucking world.
I mean, it's crazy.
It was, and mostly what we think about is like the gay stuff, like the amount of men who had sex with other men was astonishing to most of the people who read. They could not believe what they were seeing, as well as just sexual habits and sexual hangups, and just, it was a sociological study much more than it was really psychological, and it just was like, this is how human men have sex, and people were scandalized. And it's also a really great movie.
We still use the Kinsey scale now to talk about, fluidity and sexuality.
Sure.
And
yep. Yeah. I'm a 5.8, I think.
I don't know what I am.
Okay. The U.S. Supreme Court.
I'm a 10, baby. That's what I am.
Well, you like boys so much that you went full lesbian and just looped right back around.
Right back around.
Okay. The U.S. Supreme Court rules that religious education in public schools violates the Constitution. In McCollum versus Board of Education. Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. Thank you. But then, of course, it's about this time that everyone had to start saying "under God" in the middle of the Pledge of Allegiance. But okay.
Do you all still have the Pledge of Allegiance memorized? I do.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I used to have to do, this is shocking to zero people. I used to do the morning announcements in high school. And so
I'm just laughing at how not shocking that is. Go ahead.
If you know, you know. And in fact, one of my favorite teachers in high school told me at one point, she cornered me in the classroom and she said, Allie, I need you to be a little less perky in the morning. So shout out Ms. Wolf. I took it under consideration and I toned it down at 7:25. But yeah, so I know the pledge because I used to have to say it every day in morning announcements.
Okay. Yeah, we just had to, our teacher just, started us off and then the kids just took over and it was just this thing that will be seared into my brain until the end of time.
Yep.
So this is oddly prescient in 2023. The modern Jewish state of Israel is founded in 1948, 75 years ago, immediately followed by the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, which is considered one of the three big conflicts between Arab people and Israeli people. 1948, again in the 60s, and now in 2023.
Oof.
So that happened.
Yeah, history is circular, always and forever.
Yes, exactly. This surprised me. Margaret Chase Smith was elected to the U.S. Senate. A woman was elected. She didn't take over her husband's seat or anything like that. She ran for office and was elected in 1948. And Margaret Chase Smith became the first woman to serve in both the Senate and the House.
And wait, where's that biopic?
Seriously.
I mean, maybe she was just a boring wonk who did her job. Wouldn't that
be? We need some boring wonks to just do their jobs.
Right. I mean, maybe her life just was not that exciting. She just wanted to serve and she got elected and she did her job. I mean,
Give me a Senate full of just boring wonks.
Right? You can live without any biopics. Just do your fucking job.
Yeah, she'd get 217 votes.
And then I thought this one was kind of fun and also kind of wild that 75 years ago, the Hells Angels motorcycle gang is founded in the state of California. Where else?
Love to see it.
That's so weird, though. Like 1948 of all times.
Yeah.
That seems like a 70s thing to me.
Right? I mean, clearly motorcycle gangs have had, periods in history like everyone else, but they started in 1948 in California. There we go.
Probably a bunch of servicemen in World War II not taking care of their PTSD, and they were like, fuck it, we're joining a motorcycle gang.
Well, you know what? Back in post-World War II, PTSD was not spoken of, so people had to deal with that shit in all kinds of ways.
That would make a really interesting HBO TV show. Like a season
founding of the Hells Angels.
Yeah.
I'd actually why, and that would be really cool. I'd love it.
Okay, Max, call us. What are you doing? All right, let's talk a little bit about the films from 1948 that we will not be watching. And if any of us have seen any of these or just have anything that we'd like to say about them, now is our chance because we are not going to watch these movies for our last little mini season. Allie, do you want to kick us off?
I sure do. So we will not be watching, thank God for this, Joan of Arc with Ingrid Bergman and Jose Ferrer. I mean, it's Joan of Arc. I find her story kind of boring. Bergman is in a titular role. She was nominated for an Oscar. It was kind of a critical dud. Word on the street is that Bergman might have been sleeping with the director. He died 2 months after this came out and was very disappointed in it, maybe contributed to his heart attack, all allegedly. And also she was 33.
Playing a 14-year-old.
So, actually, now that I say all those things, maybe I do want to see it. But generally, I'm glad that we're not watching it.
Yeah, I thought Jane Weedland of the Go-Go's made a wonderful Joan of Arc in Bill and Ted's Excellent
Correct.
Adventure.
That is the only Joan of Arc that I will recognize. Is the one in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I actually almost said that, so same wavelength. Next up, we are not watching, also not mad at this, Anna Karenina with Vivian Lee as Anna, based on the book. You know what it's about. Sure.
I actually don't know what it's about. That book is a tome, and I've never read it.
I read the summary, and it was a lot of Russian names, and I was like, man, we're done here. So I've never read it.
You know what? I am weird this way. I do love me some Anton Chekhov, but I've never been all that excited. You got to see it. You can't read it. Reading Chekhov is the worst, but watching it is actually kind of amazing.
The only Chekhov I'm familiar with is from Star Trek. So.
Okay, well, there you go. If you are new to Chekhov, let me just say, Vanya on 42nd Street is a really great movie. They're doing Uncle Vanya, but it's in rehearsal, and so it's Julianne Moore and Brooke Smith and Larry Pine and just a bunch of really good New York actors who are like in jeans and leather jackets and t-shirts, and Wallace Shawn plays Vanya, and they're just doing the play, but they're not doing it with any kind of, there's not even like rehearsal skirts and any of that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just they're rehearsing it, and you just watch the rehearsal from beginning to end. And that's the movie that made me go, holy shit, like Chekhov. Okay. Because Julianne Moore acts the fuck out of that movie. She's so good. Anyway, but I've never been all that excited about Tolstoy. Never read him. Don't really care if I ever do.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'd like to tackle either that or Crime and Punishment at some point in my life, but maybe not. Maybe not in the year of our Lord 2023. Another movie that we are not watching, but I kind of wish we were, was Johnny Belinda. Okay, so it is it's a wild story about a deaf-mute woman, a local doctor, a child from rape, and small-town Canadian life. Okay, so all four of those things coincide. Basically, Jane Wyman, who won the Oscar for Best Actress, is this deaf-mute woman, and this local doctor kind of falls in love with her, but people in the town shun her, and then she's raped by her like frenemy's boyfriend, and it's just like, people go up in arms, and then she finally escapes, but she's like maybe going to be put to death. It's crazy. And then this movie was remade twice. One is a 1967 television movie with Mia Farrow as Belinda, and then and David Carradine is the rapist, okay? And then 1982 as another TV remake with Rosanna Arquette as Belinda. So it has a rich history.
Yeah, that sounds bananas. And of course, I remember Jane Wyman from Falcon Crest.
Oh, wow.
And she was the matriarch of that. Yeah, she was like, she led that whole winery. And it was always like an Oscar winner, Jane Wyman. And I was like, the lady from Falcon Crest won an Oscar? Like, that was so weird to me. So I've always been curious about this movie, but I've never seen it.
No, but I was like, this is bananas when I clicked on when I did my research, quote unquote. All right, and the last movie that we are not watching, that I sort of kind of wish that we were, I'm lukewarm, is The Adventures of Don Juan, with one Mr. Errol Flynn. So you can imagine that it is as quoted, swashbuckling adventure romance movie. So we're just going to, put all the genres in there. It was Errol Flynn's last movie, and apparently he was both very sick and very drunk during the making of this movie. So
okay.
I think he held up something like 60 plus production days. So
wow.
Yeah.
All right. So. Well, I mean, Errol Flynn. I've never, I don't know much about Errol Flynn. I mean, his reputation really precedes him. I mean, I know all about looking at the moon through the porthole. You ever heard that story?
No.
That was his biggest scandal. He was he led a 16-year-old girl down to his little cabin on a boat because he wanted to show her the moon through a porthole.
Sure, he did.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Different kind of moon is what it
exactly. Anyway, but also just he was an actor who did lots of these actiony things, but in my head, just not a great actor, but
Yeah.
I've never seen any of his movies, so who am I?
And I mean, what? He's the quintessential Robin Hood, right? So.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, and Kevin Costner,
Well,
of course.
well, and Carrie Elways, if we're going there.
Well, sure.
I love Men in Tights. Underrated movie.
Another movie we won't be watching is Key Largo, starring Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall.
Fontiga, baby, a
little bit before the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
So a man visits his war buddy's family hotel and finds the gangster running things as a hurricane approaches. So you got, two dangerous things at once, going on. A wartime buddy afterwards and stuff. So a gangster film, I would have probably enjoyed it. I like, or at least I think I like Humphrey Bogart. I've only seen him really in one movie, but I really enjoyed him in that film. So I'm assuming I probably would enjoy him in this.
Well, we will be watching him later on, so don't you worry.
That's true. But so, I maybe give that one a shot.
It's a Bogey and Bacall. I would be interested in seeing it just because they're one of those iconic screen couples.
You know more about the 40s than I do, so I don't. This is an era of movie cinema history that I just don't really know enough about, and I probably need to dive in a little deeper.
Well, Matt, you've been doing this for 4 years now, so I think you've probably watched more movies that are 75 years old than most of your friends. You probably know more than you think at this point.
Hopefully. I don't know. I don't want to take a test, though. Another movie is The Three Musketeers. Starring Gene Kelly, Angela Lansbury, and Lana Turner. Like, I kind of wish we were watching this. I watched the preview for it, and it just looks bonkers ridiculous. Like, it's in color, and it just looks like a lot of fun. So
I could take or leave The Three Musketeers in any form, except in candy form. That's my favorite Three Musketeers.
True. But the movie it's one of those big budget films. It's got a lot of action in it. It's got a lot of romance in it. It just seems over the top silly. And I think it might actually be a fun movie to watch.
You have June Allison listed here in the outline, and I remember her not because she spells her name like I do, which is fairly rare, but I remember her from her Depends commercials. That's how I remember June Allison. And when I saw her name on this outline, I had to look it up to see if I was recalling that correctly. And P.S. I am. You can watch. You can watch the commercials.
I mean, when you're in the middle of a sword fight, Depends kind of comes in handy because you can't just leave and go.
Sorry to Jude Allison. Like, that's a horrible way to remember her, but that is how, like, I was of that
You know
age.
what?
Yeah.
A whole generation remembers June Allison as the Depends lady.
It's true.
She got paid for that shit. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, national commercials pay like cash money, so sure.
Another movie that we won't be watching is The Search. So, in post-war Berlin, an American private helps a lost Czech boy find his mother. So, there's a lot of orphans after the war, and then reconnecting them with parents was really difficult. So that's basically what this story is. They shot it around the world. So there are a lot of film sites like throughout the world. It's like one of the big things selling points of this movie. The other big selling point of this movie is Montgomery Clift.
Hot.
He is very hot.
I mean, oh my God. And, I was saying to Matt before we started, I've seen some shirtless photos of Montgomery in his prime on the beach, and he's kind of got a little bit of fuzz on his shoulders. And I always thought that would be a deal breaker for me. And Montgomery Clift has proved to me that no, it is not. He could have a hairy shoulders. He could have a hairy back. I would take him home so fast.
He's a hottie for sure.
And he was on our team, Maddie.
Oh, he's a...
he's a big old homo. Yes, he was. Yeah. He was one of Liz Taylor's gay BFFs.
Oh,
along with Roddy McDowell and Rock Hudson.
That's a threesome I'd
pay to watch. Absolutely.
Yeah. He also shows up in Red River, another movie we won't be watching that starred Montgomery Clift and John Wayne. So
I can always pass on a John Wayne movie. Not statement. My favorite. Not a great actor. The only movie he ever made that was halfway decent was True Grit, but now it doesn't matter because the Coen brothers made a far superior version of that movie, so we don't ever need to watch John Wayne ever again. Plus, he was an asshole. So, No, but I do remember a scene from Red River being featured in one of my favorite documentaries, The Celluloid Closet, all about, hidden gay stuff in old movies. Because there's a scene where Montgomery Clift and another cowboy are comparing guns and asking if they can hold each other's guns and just admiring how good they feel in their hands. And it's just, listen, if you were starved for content, that had to do for you.
I can only imagine that Montgomery Clift was just laughing and having a hard time not on
That's really
he was
funny.
clearly having a great time filming the scene. You can tell.
That's really funny.
Yeah, it was fun. But that's the only scene I need to see, and I saw it, so we're done. Also, we will not be watching a film called I Remember Mama, which looks like a very saccharine, sweet kind of movie. But apparently, like all the user reviews on IMDb, at least the featured ones, were like, this is actually a really realistic movie of the immigrant experience in the turn of the century. Like, it's not just all sweetness and light. Irene Dunn, of course, was in Life with Father, which we watched last year. She's in one of my favorite movies of all time, The Awful Truth, and also My Favorite Wife, both of those with Cary Grant, where she is witty and urbane and sophisticated and fun and smart. And in this one, she is like a Norwegian immigrant with a big braid that goes across her head, like the Swiss Miss. And, it's this kind of like Hard Knocks kind of immigrant story. But apparently, pretty good.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, and that was on my list. I didn't get to it this time, but it was one of the 5 that I'd kind of prepped for 1948. A couple of Shakespeares came out in 1948. First, Orson Welles played the titular role of Macbeth on screen. Macbeth is coming to DC later next year with Mr. Ray Fiennes and Indira Varma. And Maddie and I have tickets to go see that. So super duper excited about that. Also, Laurence Olivier's Hamlet, which I believe he won the Best Actor Oscar for. And Larry's a little presentational in his Shakespeare, but...
I loathe Hamlet. Ugh.
It's been done to death. So
I just don't like it. I like Macbeth, but I don't like Hamlet.
Yeah, Hamlet's just, it is this, it's basically 4 hours of somebody not being able to make up their mind.
Which, if you know me, you know that is very triggering for me. Like, be fucking decisive, okay, Hamlet? And everyone, if you're not decisive, be decisive.
Yeah. I like the Ophelia story, so I always watch Hamlet to see how how Ophelia does. But I'm kind of with you. Hamlet, whatever. And then finally, we will not be watching a movie called The Portrait of Jenny. Have you ever watched this? Have you ever seen this?
No, I've never even heard of it.
Okay. Banana Town. You want to talk about crazy, crazy, crazy movies. It is a romantic fantasy.
Oh, boy.
Makes no sense whatsoever. Really, it doesn't. And they tell you in this whole long prologue, this voiceover is like, what you are about to see will make no sense. And it doesn't. But for what you can kind of piece together, Joseph Cotton is this painter. He meets this 13-year-old girl in Central Park, and she clearly has a crush on him, but it's not creepy. He's not like doing anything inappropriate with her, but he's just kind of like, he's amused by this whole thing. And she's like, will you wait for me so we can be together forever? And he's like, yeah, okay, sure, little girl, bye. But then later on that night, he's like kind of struck by, like, remembers her and just paints a picture, and immediately his fortunes change, and an artist, a studio picks it up. He sees her like 3 days later, but she's like 5 years older. And then he sees her like a week later, and she's 5 years older still. Like, she seems to be growing up to kind of catch up with him. And then at the end of the movie, we find out that she's been time traveling this whole time, and she actually died 20 years ago. Okay. Right. And it never explains it. It never says how this is happening or why. Just that these two were meant to be together. So she just willed herself into his reality somehow. And there you are. Huh. It's a very odd movie, but I had a friend who loved it, and made me watch it. And I was like, okay. I mean, your disbelief has to be through the ceiling to even like begin to, because and I like it when things, I can suspend my disbelief, it's fine, but then explain it to me, like how,
Right.
Yeah.
how did this all go on? No idea with this one. Anyway, we won't be watching it. Here's some movies, though, that we will be watching. Next week, we are going to come right back at you with a tight 90 called Sorry, Wrong Number, starring Barbara Stanwyck as a bedridden housewife who gets a crossed line.
Uh-oh.
This wouldn't happen anymore, but like all of a sudden she picks up her phone and she's overhearing a telephone conversation that she's not a part of, where two men are planning on murdering someone. So she's trying to figure out what she can do from her lone bed that she can't get out of because she's sick. And turns out they're planning to murder her.
Oh.
So you're like, woo, like that came out of nowhere. And then,
hijinks ensue.
And you see what happens. Burt Lancaster, who is always nice to look at, plays her slightly shady husband. Anyway, we'll be talking about that one next week.
After that, we're going to be talking about Call Northside 777, starring James Stewart, Richard Conte, Lee Cobb, and Helen Walker. It's basically a movie about a man who's wrongly accused and a reporter who is kind of pushed to get the case reopened. And he doesn't actually believe that the guy is innocent, but then as he starts to reveal more and more facts, he starts to question whether he is or not. And the pushback that he gets from the authorities and everything about trying to reopen this case. So Jimmy Stewart, generally the same in every movie, but generally solid in every movie. So I thought it would be an interesting kind of court drama kind of thing.
I mean, it's basically like The Fugitive in the 40s. So
exactly.
Similar. Yeah.
I never heard of this movie in my life until Matt turned it around and everything, and it's like, I want to watch Call Northside 777, and I'm like, call who? I don't know this movie, but you know what? It's available. It's available for rent, and it's Jimmy Stewart and Lee J. Cobb, who we just saw in The Exorcist. Mm-hmm. So we'll get to watch him, 25 years before. It's one of the fun things about doing this whole show. After Northside 777, we're going to watch a little movie called Rope. Another short little film, because I know it's exactly 80 minutes long, because the gimmick that Hitchcock used with this one is he decided he wanted to do a movie all in one take. Now, the thing is, in 1948, you couldn't run 80 minutes of film. There was no film canister that big. So what they did was they essentially did 8 10-minute takes. And then at the end of a take, they would do a close-up on somebody's back who was wearing a black jacket. And then all of a sudden they would pull out from his back and we're in a brand new... So you can kind of tell when they... with the film, but it's 80 minutes long. It's all, one location, one time period. It's 80 minutes worth of action. It's all in real time. And that's the movie. And it's another Jimmy Stewart. So we're going to do a little Jimmy Stewart double feature. He is, I don't know if he's a detective or if he's just kind of taking on the role of trying to figure out what the hell is going on. But these two young men have hidden a body in the room that this whole thing is taking place in. And they are based on Leopold and Loeb, who were two actual real serial killers who were also gay lovers. But of course, in 1948, you couldn't do a movie about gay people without, you couldn't say it out loud. So it's all very much hinted at. And apparently in 1948, it was real obvious. And I'm just curious to see whether we think it's real obvious in 2023, because you could only hint at it very subtly. And I kind of think it's probably too subtle for us, because these days you would just show them snogging in a closet and then they'd come out and greet their guests. You know what I mean? We would just show it. They could not do that then. So it was all very subtle and hinted at. And that'll be an interesting thing to see how that one aged.
That does sound interesting. All right, next up is The Red Shoes. It is based on the Hans Christian Andersen story, and it's a ballet movie. And who doesn't love a ballet movie? I love a ballet movie. Center Stage is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I am excited. Apparently, the costumes are exquisite, and the dancing is fabulous. It's nobody you've ever heard of, but they cast actual ballerinas and ballet dancers. So I'm ready. It's, in the end, it's really about like work-life balance and, be a professional and personal life. But yeah, I'm excited to see this one. So.
The only thing I know about The Red Shoes is that everyone in a chorus line is like, the Red Shoes. Oh my God, The Red Shoes. It's the movie that made them all want to be dancers.
Exactly. So I also love a chorus line. So.
There we are. Okay. After that, we are watching a holiday movie, but it's not the holiday you might be thinking. And it's not even really a holiday movie. It's a movie that happens to end on Easter. And so they called it Easter Parade, featuring the Irving Berlin classic Easter Parade, as well as a whole score of Irving Berlin songs. This one stars Judy Garland, Fred Astaire, Ann Miller, and Peter Lawford. And it's just a good old-fashioned musical, and who doesn't love a little bit of Judy? So there we are.
I'm kind of excited for that one because I do love Irving Berlin. So next up is The Snake Pit. So basically a woman's experience in a mental institution.
Oof.
The book that it's based on was very controversial, and at the time probably would be still now. So I'm really excited to see this movie. It's starring Olivia de Havilland, Mark Stevens, Leo Jen, and Celeste Holm.
Oh, Celeste Holm, who is in my favorite movie of all time, All About Eve. Be interesting to see her. And I guess this is only, oh my gosh, this is 2 years before All About Eve.
Oh boy.
If we hit season 7, ding, 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 you know exactly what we'll be watching that time around. But yeah, I love Celeste Holm. Although she hated Betty Davis and Betty Davis hated her. So there you go.
Love that too.
I mean, you got to find somebody to hate.
There's a book that I would definitely read because I'm fascinated by like old school institutions and how bad they were.
Yeah.
All right. And last but certainly not least, we are going to end the season and the year with The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. It is a Western, but it is featuring Humphrey Bogart and several Houstons, both Angelica's dad and grandfather, John and Walt, respectively. And it won Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Screenplay. So how bad could it be? And apparently, in the little bit that I read, I didn't want to spoil it myself because I've not seen it. John said that his father, Walt, who's mostly a leading man. He plays a supporting role in this. It was the best performance he's ever done. So I am excited to see it.
Okay. Cool. I don't know a single thing about it except badges. We don't need no stinking badges. That's the only thing I know. That's all.
I didn't know it was from that movie, so you even knew a little bit more than me.
There you go. That's Treasure of Sierra Madre. And that is going to take us into December. And that is going to wrap us up for this year, 2023, and season 5 of the Rewind Project. So, I hope you enjoy all these movies. I hope you enjoy all of our conversations about all these movies, even if you don't want to watch them. And I can't wait to get into it with the two of you. So off we go, folks. I am Eric.
I'm Allie.
I'm Matt.
Be kind. Rewind.
You've been listening to The Rewind Project. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, and Google Play. Please subscribe and rate us. It helps a lot. We love your comments and questions. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and via our new phone number at 202-618-2402. Thanks for listening. Be kind. Rewind.
Okay, awesome. I just need you to say one thing for me, Allie, and that is the title of this movie. And then we'll put it back.